Uh, Thank you, and Kevin, and thank you for having me today, whichever time zone and day today is where you are. Um, Today, my sharing will center on two key ideas. And I think on this slide, you can see some of the words in bold. I think first is really the idea of resilience. How do we enable our city to be resilient, to respond to shocks? And second, this idea of how do we rally our people and our stakeholders together. I think these two key ideas are common in all cities today as we go through the last couple of months in COVID-19. So I'm Zhongwen from the Singapore Urban Redevelopment Authority. For those who are not familiar, we are Singapore's National Land Use Planning Authority, and the mission to make Singapore a great city to live, work, and play. Just a quick intro to Singapore. Singapore, some of you may know, we are both a city and a state. And so Singapore, like all cities, as planners, we have to plan for housing, for amenities, for greenery, to provide a good quality living environment for our people. We have to provide for commerce and industry activities, to provide good jobs. But as a state, we also have to meet our needs, such as global connections with our ports and airports, utilities like our water catchment, our waste treatment, and also things like our defense. These are needs which most cities rely on the larger hinterland, but are needs we have to be able to cater for within the limited land and sea space that we have. Hence, Singapore's planning system and our planning philosophy has always been trying to develop in a sustainable manner, balancing the needs of our economy, our people, having a good quality living environment while optimizing the limited land and sea space that we have. I think these philosophies and these principles have served Singapore well over the decades. But with the rapid changes that we are seeing in technology, in the economy, and in climate, these are things that we are required to increasingly think about. How do we incorporate greater flexibility and resilience in the way we plan? The uncertainty is not whether these things are changing. These are very certain. What is uncertain is the pace, the pace, the extent that these are changing, and the impact these are having on different facets of our lives. And I think the COVID-19 situation over the past couple of months is really one of these situations where the challenge we all face as cities is trying to grapple with needs that are emerging fast, that are changing over time, and are continuing to evolve. Through Yore's digitalization or digital transformation or digitalization in the last 7 to 8 years, we found that data and technology is a very powerful enabler if we harness it well. It can enable us to make more data-informed decisions, be more productive in the way we plan, to be more targeted in how we intervene, and be better able to monitor the changes and response from our interventions. Secondly, it allows us to have a more holistic and complete picture across the different urban systems and urban domains, and allow us to be able to adopt a more integrated, a more synergistic approach in how we address the different issues that we need to respond to. Thirdly, it also enables us to support our public and our industry to obtain information and services more readily in a manner that's more efficient and reduce the amount of time and effort people take hunting for information, supporting more data-informed decisions. I think these experiences shaped our belief in the value of having Space Out as a portal, as a platform to support our national COVID-19 efforts. The idea is to enable our members of the public to easily find out where are the crowded places, what is the crowd level across our supermarkets, our malls, our post office, our stadiums, our markets as well. And through these efforts, enable us to be better able to make informed decisions and choices to achieve the safe distancing and the safe measures we want. And this effort would not have been possible without the partnership of many of our industry as well as agency stakeholders who journeyed with us in this journey over the last couple of months. Our journey began very much in late March. Chong gave a very detailed timeline on how in Singapore the COVID-19 measures and situation evolved. And in late March was when Singapore introduced the safe distancing measures, particularly for the retail areas, in this case, for our retail malls. There were controls in place in terms of the occupancy and crowd levels. And this was a very new measure for our malls, very new for their visitors as well. And when it was implemented, we started to see long queues forming outside several of these malls, people waiting to get in. And the malls were also finding it a challenge to manage many of these crowds that have already turned up at their doorsteps. We observed that many of the malls, they were actually doing counts because they were trying to ensure that they could adhere to the guidelines. And this information that they were having, however, was not readily available to anyone. It was not available to the public. And therefore, it made it challenging for anyone to be able to make a more informed choice of where to go, when to go. And we therefore saw the value in bringing together the crowd level information that was fragmented across the different stakeholders, bringing it onto a common portal, connecting people to the information that would enable everyone to make a more informed choice. And through this, as I mentioned, we want to be able to support everyone to better achieve safe distancing, but also indirectly relieve some of the pressures that our malls were facing with having crowds turned up at their doorstep and them having to manage it. Well, the journey was a very interesting one, and you will see over time the number of stakeholders that participated. And when we started first with the large retail malls, or I would call it the large retail mall chains. And we were fortunate that several of them agreed to participate within the first few days where we mooted the idea to them. And we began to realize that, all the different chains and all the different malls had a very different method of counting visitors. Some had people counting systems, some were doing the counts more manually, some were compiling the information to quite manual means as well. And so we really had to understand what each mall was doing, work out a very practical and safe way for them to send the information to us, for us to be able to assemble it together, but also in a manner that was not too onerous for them operationally. It was also very understandable that many of the malls were very concerned with how will the data be used, what will be shown, and these were the concerns we have to address. We had to agree on how the information will be presented. We had to assure them that the information will be used primarily for the public to make the decisions and not for the purpose of auditing the malls. And we also had to explain how we intend to handle and store the data that they were piping to us on a near real-time basis. I think we were very grateful to have many of the malls approached us after the initial launch on the first weekend of April to join the Space Out initiative, and subsequently having several of the supermarket chains, the post office, our markets, our stadiums also joining, and for the stadiums and the Sentosa, which is one of our key attraction areas in Singapore, them joining as we entered the reopening phase after circuit breaker. I think the data that I mentioned we obtained, brought together from different malls, well, we really started with a very broad range of data exchange arrangements, a very broad range of engineering solutions, and these evolved throughout the last couple of months as the different partners adopted new systems or the way they changed their way of operating. But one thing that I think has remained quite consistent throughout this period was the portal. So this was the Space Out portal, which is at spaceout.gov.sg. And it was a portal that we had designed at the onset for it to be easy to use, where anyone can access the portal as long as the device has a browser. There was no need to install any application further than that, where information of where it's crowded is available at one glance, and people can easily zoom into the site or location of interest. And it was designed to be highly modular, where at the onset, we had anticipated that we will progressively include new users, new activities, new stakeholders, and the information will continue to grow over the coming months. So this whole concept, I think, has served us pretty well throughout the entire period. And we continue to make improvements very quickly in the subsequent months to include improvement in usability with feedback that we get from users with color blindness, them requesting for the symbols and information to be more distinct, and also requests from partners and members of the public to include additional information. For example, opening hours of some of the outlets so that people can make better choices of where they go and plan their schedules better. We also included some simple analytics, such as where are the nearby options that were not crowded or less crowded, so that people can choose these outlets instead of the ones that maybe they are familiar with but could be quite crowded near their place. And also added for the multi-language on all the 4 official languages in Singapore. In early August, we partnered with Sentosa. So Sentosa, as I mentioned, is one of the major attractions in Singapore, and they are an island in the south, where through the reopening phase, it started to attract more crowds. We implemented them a unique district layer, where for the entire district, you could see the crowd levels at some of the points of interest and attractions, the transport nodes, the beaches, and also information subsequently on the car parks itself. I think through the journey, some of the key takeaways that we had reflecting back is that we can see how technology and data can be very useful to bridge the information gaps to help people be able to make more informed choices, especially when information is fragmented across many stakeholders. But secondly, when working with so many stakeholders on something that is also quite new and unfamiliar to many, it was very important at the early stage to be able to build alignment of interest and to be able to demonstrate the feasibility and value of what we are doing. Thirdly, I think for a portal that is supporting the public to make more informed choices, it needs to be designed with the user in mind, cater both in the design and development process to be able to continuously make improvements in a very rapid way. So I hope this sharing has been useful, and I look forward to the subsequent discussion. Thank you.